Okay. 3.23 patch reveal, and some information has come trickling out, and there is a lot in this league. There's a couple of things that I think are very interesting. First of all, um, melee gets a huge boost. Like the biggest reason why playing ranged is awesome is because you can engage enemies before they can get to you. In this league, well, if an enemy is coming out of the mist here, right, that is only half a screen width. And this is not a wide screen, I believe. Right, so what that means from an actual gameplay perspective is that the biggest benefit you get from playing ranged, which is off-screening things or being able to, you know, hit things or start reacting to things as soon as they show up on your screen, is gone. Like you're going to get hit in melee. Also, strafing, right? Like moving around packs, which is the way you avoid getting hit by projectiles, has a cost to it because you're going to deplete your ability to run through the woods. Um, this is very interesting. It really means that you are gonna get incentivized to, you know, have this dumb barbarian playstyle of run straight at enemies and blow shit up. Um, and if you are playing a glass cannon, you have far less time to react. You're gonna die a lot. This is a very different league. This league mechanic with the reduced visibility, it's been compared to Delve. I don't think that's a good comparison. I really think that in Delve you have a lot of visibility. Um, Deep delving, like this is probably what your world looks like, but you know you have the mini map and you have a lot to work with there. Um, I don't even know if we're gonna have a mini map in here. Um, so this is gonna be very interesting to see how it's going to disproportionately affect ranged attacks. I was planning on playing Scourge Arrow. I might still do it, but I'm also realizing, yikes, if I play Scourge Arrow, I can't start charging up my Scourge Arrow when something enters the screen. Right? Like if they come from over here, and I understand that's hard to read. So if they come from the right side of the screen, then that probably means that I lose half of my reaction speed, of half of my reaction window. That is rough. Um, and I don't know if I'm planning my build around having to switch off of Scourge Arrow at this point. Um, Also, if you have a ramp skill, I don't know if there's enough enemies in here. Right? Scourge Arrow, Herald of Agony, which was what I was looking at, and I was pretty excited when I looked at the gem changes, especially for Herald of Agony. That looked great. But now I'm like, ooh, I don't know if this is gonna be a good idea. Like things are gonna be in my face, and then if I have to go and sit there and charge up, I'm gonna get hit once at least per enemy. That's hard to offset. All right. So I think that this is a huge gameplay benefit for more melee-oriented classes. If Righteous Fire had been left alone, I believe Righteous Fire has this same ring around you. It would have had zero impact on Righteous Fire. This is this league mechanic combined with old Righteous Fire is just you're gonna have to play Righteous Fire. Um, I think that people find out to make a way to make Righteous Fire work. They always do. but we'll see how that ends up working. Alright, let's talk about why I think this is the best rework of Pathfinder that we've seen. This is an amazing Pathfinder design. Let me move my camera so it's not blocking as much. There we go. That looks more egotistical than just making a YouTube video now, but whatever. Nature's Concoction is an amazing design decision area. This is the type of ascendancy node I would have loved to see on Pathfinder when I was completely focused on Pathfinder. Right, so flasks adjacent to applied tinctures gain 3 charges when you hit an enemy with a weapon, no more than once every second. Flasks adjacent to applied tinctures have 30% increased effect when used if you've hit an enemy with a weapon recently. So first of all, the 3 charges when you hit an enemy seems a lot like that Pathfinder ability that gives you 3 charges every 3 seconds, except you get triple the charges. This thing can sustain a dying sun. This thing generates 3 times as many charges as the other ability. Not only that, it gives 30% increased effect on your dying sun. This is amazing. This is a decision of like which flasks you're empowering. It allows you to interact with the uniques in the game. You can give up 2 flask slots to boost up 3 flask slots, or you can give up 1 flask slot to boost up 2, but then you have, you know, another 2 flask slots hanging around. Love it. Absolutely love this as a way to build a design that interacts with flasks in a way that doesn't mess up your need to balance that class around the fact that everybody has 5 flasks. This is fantastic. We have the coated blade beforehand, which is great. This also is better designed than Pathfinder. Yay! Right, the idea of coated blade, which kind of seems like the Pathfinder skill of the ascendancy thing, where you're like, hey, if you have flasks and all of these different things, you get some penetration and you get some Fizz's added chaos and crit strike and whatever. This is a far more interesting way to handle this. If after this league they don't just gut Pathfinder and replace it with like Coated Blade and Nature's Concoction, then I'd be disappointed. I think that this is a far more interesting and superior design. Love it. Even if Coated Blade is, you know, has to become something that is based off of what type of flask you're using. I don't know. I don't know how you would do it without some of this going becoming core-ish. Absolutely fantastic. Detect Evil. I think Detect Evil is going to be a far more important node than people give it credit for, because I wouldn't be surprised if Detect Evil can work in the woods. This might be a very important node to kind of give ranged classes the ability to engage things from further away. Barkskin, I don't know, we'll have to see what the numbers are. We have no idea. Tinctures have increased effect per empty flask slot. This could be very interesting. Honestly, like this design, I'm far more excited about than the current Pathfinder design. Which also means that why would you play Pathfinder unless you're building a Chaos character, right? The whole flask part of Pathfinder, this is more fun. Does it stack? Yes. Is it worth it to stack it to do dumb stuff? Probably. Right? it allows you to get a lot of flask effect on a character. You get 30% of flask effect for unique flask, because that's usually what you care about. On the Pathfinder Ascendancy, the way you do this is by not taking the major node and maxing out on the minor nodes. And then you combine it with 30% from here. That's 60% increased effect off of these two Ascendancies. I'm sure that there's going to be flasks that are going to be broken. And you're going to have to invest nothing else in flasks, really, because you have an insane amount of sustain on the flasks you care about. Dying Sun is gonna be expensive. It's gonna be really expensive, because Dying Sun loves these numbers. Dying Sun is hard to miss sustain, and now it's gonna be amazing, and it's gonna be easy to sustain. People like to use it with attack builds. The +2 projectiles is great. It's gonna be more than 2 projectiles because of the flask effect. It's gonna have good area of effect, if I recall correctly, and there's a huge downside of how much you have to spend to sustain these flasks goes down drastically. The other one that is interesting to look at is Vessel of Vinctar. Vessel of Vinctar is very expensive to sustain. Much easier to sustain with Nature's Concoction than with the Pathfinder class. It just is. Alright. Next Ascendancy class. Where do I have to move this thing? Good enough. Life-based casting support is interesting. I mean, everybody's reserving all their mana these days, so the trade-offs on this are huge. It allows you to get insane life on body armors, right? Because you just put in a rare body armor that has 500 plus energy shield, and after that you convert that to 500 life. Plus, on top of that, your body armor doesn't have a life modifier. That means that your life masteries can trigger much more efficiently. So love this design. Really, a fun design. I think that there's lots of options here to do. I'm leaning towards this class. I don't want to do the life stuff, so I'm looking at the other skills, which is the Ravenous, and then in my case, Penance Mark. Penance Mark is again flask sustain, right? Because you can get your flask charges from killing stuff now. There's always stuff for you to kill because you will just spawn more enemies. It's affected by Mark effect. It's affected by flask charges gained for killing enemies, right? If they're affected by ailments, you can get an extra 100% increased flask charges gained for killing enemies. You can get, with like Deadeye, probably 100% increased effect of marks. That is 100 there, then 150 with the 50% increased charges from slaying enemies. Granted, that is then taken down again, because once you're in maps, there's a penalty for the number of flash charges you gain from killing enemies. But that might be more charges gained on average than the 3 charges for every flask that you would get as a Pathfinder, and is part of the backbone of the class. Really like this. I do. This looks lots of fun. I have no idea what Dark Effigy does. I don't know exactly what the numbers are going to look like. Penance Mark is a wild card. Like, if you can splash damage shotgun things, like let's talk Elemental Hit. Right? Elemental Hit, when something is affected by the ailment of the element it chooses, you create an explosion. If you spawn 3 additional enemies during the attacking, that means that when you hit those enemies, and assuming you have a way to get all your ailments on there quickly before you blow them up, you'll start to really create these overlapping explosions, and that can mean that you have a time stream multiplier for a very short window. We don't know how long these enemies last. If you increase flask effect, well, then you might be getting 6 enemies, and you have 6 times the splashy bullshit happening. That would be an X7 multiplier on damage. I don't know how that's gonna work out, but that seems really good. Um, you know, we'll see. There's a huge opportunity cost for it, but again, this can give you flash sustain. It's amazing. I really like the way it's set up. I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how everything is going to interact. Yeah, so the life stuff, we don't know what the Ravenous, I believe, is like the stuff around certain corpses, 20% more damage, 20% less damage taken. I think this is gonna be very nice for people who are not bossers to get into bossing. You just buy the cheapest Eldritch corpse you can, and you get an easier mode to access bosses that normally you probably would sell off. Like you can do it yourself by some investment. I like that part. We have no idea what this class is gonna do. I mean, the additional backpack is amazing for people who min-max the game, because in there they're going to put in their corrupted essences. They're gonna put in there the what's the other junk do you want to carry around, like qualitating up your strong boxes, having the currency handy to re-roll your strong boxes. Reroll your Val side areas? I don't think that's actually going to be a thing. But you can put that mapping currency in there, the stuff that you just want to have handy. And, you can put junk in there like your portal scrolls, we'll see how all those things interact. I think it's going to be convenient, but really it's just a tax on these other 3 nodes. Howl of the Wolf. I mean, it's not gonna see any use, because people are gonna do it for the charm sockets, and people are gonna do dumb things with charm sockets. But it's gonna be much later in the league, so we'll see what happens. This seems like a fun rework of the Ascendant class. Honestly. It kind of has the same feel of the Ascendant class, but it's of course different. But this is if you had a choice of choosing this or the Ascendant class as your ascendancy, this is pretty good. It has the same flavor to it, and it's interesting. It has stuff going on. I mean, the Ascendant character model and the Ascendant's backstory makes Howl of the Wolf probably not thematically anywhere near what you want. And Might of the Bear with your additional rucksack is probably gonna be like Silk Purse or something like that. But the rest of the concept, of the design concept for an Ascendant type class, this is fantastic. I hope that after this league, we're going to see some ascendancies reworked with the things that came out of this. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're just playtesting some Path of Exile 2 ascendancies. All in all, I think this is going to be a absolutely bonkers league. I think that the amount of power that you get during the acts is like half a link. Like your character is ignoring the ascendancy classes that we get on top of things, but just the quality and being able to quality up your gems as you do your labs means that you're probably going to have at least one quality 20 gem. So your main skill probably will do roughly 15% more damage, which is a bad gem link thereabouts. That's a lot of power to introduce at the point where you hit white maps. So whatever you were expecting to get to in white maps from your experience level, you're going to be more powerful. On top of that, you're gonna have 2, maybe 3 of these ascendancy passives as well. That combination, like the amount of additional damage, the amount of additional power, survivability, whatever the direction you end up taking this, that you're going to walk into maps with, it's going to be weird. Right? Like if you have a character that you're really comfortable running up into yellow maps, chances are you can just run into red maps. It's going to make the economy weird. Like you don't have to buy stuff to improve your character until much later, because you're gonna have 50-ish% more damage slash survivability thereabouts. Right? Part of that's just the gem power with these new qualities, and these additional mods that you get in your character from these additional ascendancy classes. It's going to be a very wild league, and I think that the early game economy because of that is going to be nuts. Right? The early game economy, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that a lot of the money that gets put into the early game economy is by not amazing players like me. Because we play during league launch, like we're not on the top 10%. Well, maybe in the top 10%, but we're definitely not on the top 1%. But there's a lot of us. Right? And yeah, we don't kill nearly as many monsters as group play, and group play has outsized effect on the high-end items showing up in the market. But we still have a lot of raw Excel drops. We still have people doing chaos recipe, and they buy your junk in your bulk tabs. I don't know what's gonna happen, because we may not need to buy anything, right? Like if we just don't put, if you're worried about hitting your resists and you went with this Oath of the Magi and you have 50 all res because you have no gems in your helmet and you don't have a min-max build that is, socket starved, that's amazing. If you have a helmet that doesn't have as many sockets in it anyway, that's really good. Right? If you need movement speeds, you can just give up your boot slot and have 30% increased movement speed. You don't need to buy boots. You don't need to buy these staple items of resist rings or movement speed boots, or like you can kind of just work around it. And a lot of these, not amazing players like me, we don't want to hit a lot of buttons. So not having links everywhere, it might be okay. So it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see how this is going to really mess up the early league economy. Um, like corrupted boots that you find that are sometimes have amazing stats, but they didn't have the movement speeds and they don't have the right socket colors and not enough links and everything else. Well, corrupted item finds are really much more interesting if you're running Oath of the Magi. You don't have to link them. You don't need the sockets in them. Corrupted items are amazing for this type of class. Um, yeah, it's gonna be a wild league. I think that the alternate qualities, or whatever they call them now, transfigured gems, are going to make things far more interesting. I think that they brought a mechanic that was inconvenient to say the least, which is trading with other players to buy the alternate quality gems, and then if you're looking for an alternate quality gem that other people don't value and you don't want to run your own heist contract, you're never going to find it, you don't have to worry about that because you can relatively easily generate your own. It's going to be wild. We have no idea what builds are going to be good. We know that some builds got a boost. I think that whatever you played last week, League, unless it was Righteous Fire, is probably more powerful this league at the point where you get to maps by a lot. So if you were playing your homegrown build and you got to white maps, and by the time you hit yellow maps, you really needed some gear upgrades, and you ended up having to spend a few chaos. That point might not be until red maps. I don't know what they're gonna do next league. Because next league is gonna feel really rough when you hit maps after you have this massive power spike. But I'm really excited about the design space. Like the honestly, if they delete Pathfinder next league and they just replace it with this class, I would be happy. I think that this is a far more interesting ascendancy than Pathfinder, and it maintains the same flavor, and I mean, I can't justify playing Pathfinder this league. There's no reason to do it. I don't know what I'm gonna play. I'm looking forward to the new lines for the Ranger. I'll probably play a Ranger, but I don't see a reason to play Pathfinder unless I'm really going to heavily invest in going the Chaos route. I think I might just go Deadeye. I mean, Deadeye has a bunch of generic good nodes like Tailwind. And then my question is like, do I want to sustain my flask using the Nature's Concoction, which I'm pretty sure was a Pathfinder node? Or if we want to go down the penance mark, the penance mark skill. I think penance mark on a Deadeye is gonna be nuts. Like hitting an enemy, spawning like gonna be like 6 additional dudes at least. It's gonna be absolutely insane. There's people who are gonna die from it, and if they have low hit points, then you kill them very frequently. If they have high hit points, then you get the corpse explosions. Like if they just die from like one hit and it's just awful little white mobs, Herald of Ash is a bossing capable-ish skill. In that case, you might actually be interested in combining that with maybe Pathfinder. So you have the poison proliferation, but the drawback is then you don't get all the mark effect that you get on the Deadeye. Having your mark transfer on a Deadeye? How would that even work? How would that work? Like, would you just create just this unending onslaught of dudes if you kill the unique? The mark transfers to one of the minions that came from the penance mark. Like, does that reset the cooldown? Do you get like a whole bunch more dudes when you hit that dude? This could very well not work very well. But, I'm definitely feeling the urge to push the button and see what happens and find out. It's gonna be fun. And Val skills are just catnip to me. Oh, Val Arc. Amazing. Having it go back and hit the same thing multiple times is so good for Arc and Val Arc and skills like that. Yeah, this is going to be a very wild league. It's probably going to be the highest power league day one that we have ever seen. If there's a race for first anything, I mean, feel bad for the people competing because sleep is a real cost. Like, even uber pinnacle bosses are going to fall significantly faster than in any other league. Yeah, the raw character power that is available to everyone, right? This is not like a power boost to people who really engage the league mechanic. This is a power boost to everybody who invests just a regular discovery into the league mechanic. Is gonna be nuts. It's gonna be a wild league. I highly suggest you check it out.